Alright, should be another draft physics presentation. Kind of check to make sure. I think it's working. Alright, some comments and maybe some extra time we can do some other videos. Piro made a video. It's kind of funny. Yeah. Physics. It's supposed to be some sort of physics, but not really. Anyway, so this is a leftover comment and had a couple extra comments on it, so I thought I would comment on the comments. There must be pictures from the latest eclipse with telescope data that could confirm or disconfirm Einstein's theory about space-time warping. It's not really about space-time warping, it is just, light bending. So superior mind, I don't think space-time, aka velocity time, is what's in question so much as the certainty behind the idea that light is bent by gravity. Yes, that's the idea that isn't demonstrated by anything called real facts. And then apparently a Matthew guy said something, and his comment is gone, so I don't know what happened to it. I guess he removed it, but it's not here anymore. Source for what? It's already agreed that relative velocity does indeed result in a corresponding change in timing rates, and acceleration by gravity will slow down time due to the longer path for energy composing matter being accelerated. We have to sort of explain the longer path. The point is, if you are in gravity and you're moving up and down, for example, or any motion, gravity only creates more of that motion. So like a basketball player, he runs a certain speed down the court, but the ball is actually traveling a much higher velocity because it's doing the up and down thing while it's traveling in another direction. So gravity is an acceleration, clearly, but more importantly, it's an acceleration that will cause any movement that you have to be greatly magnified, in terms of, if this is your movement and then instead of that movement you're doing this to get there, you can see that that could lead to a tremendous amount of extra movement, depending on how fast the other velocity in the other dimension is. And that in atoms, these changes in velocity, and certainly the idea of having velocity, would mean that the atom is processing in space. And a processing circle, if you have to draw it, is more circle than just circles. The circle is bigger because it has to go this way more than it goes this way to process. And that would account for what we call time dilation, because the metabolism of the atoms is essentially being slowed down by the fact that it has to travel more distance to do one rotation or one movement. That's assuming that atoms rotate in the conventional theory, which I'm not at all certain they do. Anyway, mass is a different manifestation of energy, but yes, its presence interferes with the direction of incoming convergence of energy from all over the universe. Sort of superior mind's supposed to sort of be on my side, but that just doesn't, that sounds like gibberish to me. Thus reducing interactions for neighboring bodies. Well, the gravity is blocking energy, clearly. To accelerate, you absorb force. When you absorb a force, it means the force didn't get where it was going. Could think of it as a low pressure between bodies and a high pressure otherwise. Yes, there's always pressure, and you can change how much pressure there is. Alright. Okay, game is back on F4+. I don't know what the fuck that shit means. Anyway, well, you're correct about one thing. Dissident Science is a joke and clearly uses a service for ratings. Well, I don't think he uses a service, and I already said it twice. He just has a lot of extra accounts, or accounts he controls, and therefore he just uses those accounts to elevate the videos. Or has sock accounts himself. I don't know whether they're technically sock accounts. He might have some use for them. but he has a lot of them, clearly. Oh, that's the Mayul CS guy. Yeah. Well, Piro is clearly a lunatic. Did you type that on his video? Because what the shit he was talking was pretty gibberishy. I mean, you people really are just so duplicitous. Lighter than air is relevant in that you don't need anti-gravity to dispatch a sub-probe to navigate, explore another atmosphere. It's just stupid. You don't need lighter than air. You can make a machine that has a battery and that can do some propulsion. So, I mean, it's not like it's out of the question that it can do some navigating on its own. If passengers were to travel beyond 20 light years, so then you just completely change the subject without a paragraph or anything. If passengers were to travel beyond 20 light years, the protections offered by our heliosphere caused by the sun and protections offered by magnetosphere are no longer present. Yeah, well, those are only protections to skin, biological entities. You can create mechanical protections, but my whole argument is none of them are going to be effective when you're traveling so fast that one single atom will in fact get smashed by the interaction you're going to have with it, and thus make a mess out of whatever you're traveling in. And that's just a fact. Thus, a magnetically bound plasma shield, there's no such thing, so why bring it up? I mean, the plasma shield is just like any other form of matter. The plasma is made of atoms and ions, and they have to be accelerated just like you have to the velocity you're traveling at. They're going to be in just as much trouble. Protect from cosmic rays. Now, something moving very fast is a terrible shield. The shield breaks with speed. Would probably need to create a thick aluminum cover and an extended wire shell on the exterior to trap hydrogen plasma. Again, you can't trap it, you just hit it if you're going fast. Wire lattice would need to be deployed in space, obviously. I don't know what that even means. You're really drifting from the focus, which is simplicity. Buy silver now. Oh, fuck off you. Silly person. I'm a flat earther, bitch. Well, that's not very interesting. Anyway, Flyora. Can you explain burning? I believe E equals MC squares describes burning. Well, it really doesn't. Burning is just a chemical process that happens to look really cool because we live in such a thermodynamic environment, because of the atmosphere and the rest of it that we get to see. Flame and heat moves, rises, and all of those kind of things. And so fire is just a kind of chemistry, and it looks cool, but it's just chemistry. And it's not really doing the E equals MC squared thing. It's just, I mean, unless you understand, it's certainly conservational. It's just taking atoms that are, let's call them under high pressure, and turning them into atoms that are under low pressure, and moving the pressure, dissipating it, ejecting it. So it's just taking the little energy bits that make something pressurized and releasing them. So they can energize everything around them, and they end up energizing the atmosphere and the oxygen molecules and blah 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 blah, and do lots of chemistry. Do you think Einstein was right about that? Do I think that you can invent energy, like poof it? No, I don't think you can. Do I think you can take something that's moving the speed of light like a force and destroy it? No, I don't think you can. So yes, I agree with Einstein on that point. Also, the word life arbitrary. Also, is the word life arbitrary? I don't know. Do you really think you can't tell the difference between a biological system, DNA based, let's say, uh, replicator. I mean, the word life is too ambiguous, you might say, or too broad a word. Okay, we use the same word to describe a human being and, say, a sperm cell or a bacterium or even, a complex enough virus. And we use the same word for those two things, like a sponge cell. We call it a living thing. Yeah, so it's too broad. But it's hardly arbitrary. Like made up word. Yes, we made up every word. Every word is a made up word to describe something we recognize as distinct from something else. Tree, bush, grass. You see, new word for each one because they're different. And we're in fact just non-living animation. Well, we're clearly alive as being having a heartbeat and a brain that works. Now, obviously when we're dead, most of our cells don't know we're dead. Even some of the neurons are still alive for quite a while. I mean, they don't function well, but they're still alive. But we're dead. Now, but there's a definition there that we sort of understand that the structure of the thing is to maintain its function. And when it stops being maintained, that is when it stops doing what it usually does, then we call it dead. Because we know it's going to degrade, it's going to start smelling, because there's going to be chemical processes and it's going to start changing into soup or something else. But it's not going to be a living thing anymore. Alright, just in fact, a non-living animation. Well, what the fuck's an animation? I mean, everything that's, asteroids and animation. Clearly we're a system, like a weather system. Or non-living illusion, whatever. To not be able to tell the difference between me and this battery would be just playing silly games, right? I mean, nobody can't tell the difference, that there's certain properties that this doesn't have, that this does have. So why are you playing this game? Also, are we in fact resource depleters? Well, that's the tricky part. I mean, all movement requires you to consume force, consume movement, essentially. You have to consume heat, or you have to consume some other electricity, or some other form of the force moving for you to be able to move. So all movement comes from energy, so you must absorb some energy to be able to exhibit energetic behavior. So in that sense, we are all, anything that's alive is clearly consuming energy, moving the speed of light, and containing it in this vessel. And it's still moving the speed of light, but it's not going anywhere. We've trapped it. So anything that you might call an animated thing, something moving, doing movements, creating heat, generating force, had to absorb the force to exert the force. You have to put the energy into a battery before you can take the energy out of the battery. And everything had to do that. That's doing something energetic. It had to steal it had to collect the energy first. The media calls us consumers. Whatever. It's not even close to the same subject. Consumer isn't a biological designation. And clearly we know where the word comes from. It's once the economies got going and people started purchasing and blah blah blah, and we weren't just bartering, and so we called them consumers. So why are we using it? Why are you playing these fucking games? We're depleters. Everything, like I said, you could say asteroids are depleting because they have velocity. The Earth is depleting the universe because it has a velocity. It's just stupid. I'm not sure about the conversation of a mass myth. Well, then you're kind of a silly person, aren't you? So you think mass disappears and math appears. Okay, so you might as well just believe in poofy God shit then. Most resources for infrastructure, cars, clothes, toys, etc. get dumped, not conserved. I don't know. Getting dumped is like putting fertilizer, composting or something. you're just putting it back in. You're not depleting something. In fact, it's depletion not in the sense of the word they say, but in the sense that those materials are obsolete and gone forever. So, I don't know, it's just a silly thing. They obviously don't go anywhere. The atoms are relatively indestructible. It's really hard to change one, to do the alchemy thing, to change one atom into another atom. And so it's just compound building. So yes, you can break all the compounds into their basic elemental substances, and then you can rebuild them into something. But is this an interesting conversation? No. This ties into my antinatalism. Again, I couldn't care less on this channel. Anyone can see the grotesque pillaging going on. Any more grotesque than any other organism on Earth. I mean, all living things can be quite grotesque in their consumption. If grass was a feeling organism, and the buffaloes show up and graze them all down, you could call it a horrible holocaust. The pillaging. Everything's consuming on this planet. Regards. Looking forward to hear your response. Well, I don't know why you do look forward to it, because frankly, I just don't know why you have this bent that you have. But anyway, burning for sure does not describe E equals MC squared. Are you really serious? Just imagine you burn 1 kilogram of wood, then imagine 1 kilogram of matter that is turned into pure energy by this formula. Well, again, burning does not destroy the atomic structure. It doesn't do the alchemy thing. So a nuclear bomb is doing alchemy. It's changing one atom into another atom, and there's leftover bits. So in a sense, it's doing a lot more energy releasing. Now, obviously, if we made a nuclear bomb that could actually take the atom and really annihilate it, break the atoms entirely, rather than convert them into some reduced size, that bomb would be many times more powerful. As if you were comparing an atomic bomb with a fart dude. Yeah, well, it's not a dude, but close enough. I mean, it was a strange comment, I have to say. Alright, so that looks like that's it for the comments. So, moving on. Now, we could do Piro, or we could do this Bill Lucas thing was bizarre. Well, maybe we'll do some of this, because he's such a compulsive liar. And, you're just saying, the dissident science, they gave him the Lifetime Achievement Award last year, their organization. And here they let him head up a conversation, and he's just so full of shit. I mean, he just makes them all look ridiculous. Not that they don't do enough of that on their own, but so bad. So after he tells us that he invented the computer and invented, every progress in the computer, and he invented every good thing that ever happened in the history of mankind. He had something to do with it somehow. So that's what he does in this other part. They're all giving introductions about themselves, and and again, none of the introductions make any sense. But you're saying, how could a person? And one of them was a doctor, a medical doctor, and you're just saying, how could a doctor be this fucking clueless?
I'll bring you one tomorrow for people. And he brought his wife and the certificate with him the next day, and his wife was radiated.
All right, so he's saying well, I should go back a little further, because it's just an amazing pile of shit story. So some guy invented a ray gun, radio wave gun of some kind, cures cancer. And he tells this whole bizarre story tied to this nonsense, and then starts talking about his life detector thing, which is obviously just a gimmick.
A doctor named Anton Prior discovered that radar antennas put out a second type of radiation, longitudinal radiation, which caused the food that they were having during World War II, which was in bushel baskets at the base of the antenna, they did not decay.
Right. So he has some idea that a radar produces something other than just radar. It's pretty much frequency dependent. It creates one frequency, one kind of radiation. There's no other thing but electromagnetic radiation, and you can produce it at a lot of different frequencies, but there's no other kind of radiation, so this is just kind of retarded to start with. Then this idiotic claim that somehow this was a very good food preservative. Well, how come nobody knows about it now? How come none of you little amateur scientists are, proving that with experiments? I mean, what a crock of shit. Just absolute made up shit.
As long as they were near the antenna and it was running. And he moved them away 100 yards and found out, oh, they behaved just fine. We moved further away. But he after the war was over, he finished medical school and became a veterinarian.
Yeah, I became a veterinarian. He went to medical school, became a veterinarian. Even though he had discovered a great food preservative. So this poor guy, he has this image up, but he's the speaker for the next meeting. This is the nutter over here, the creationist, who's supposed to, and again, just disguised as having a scientific conversation, when really all he's into is this, we got to prove there's a God somehow.
Hired electrical engineers to build him a much stronger source of longitudinal radiation. And he was radiating all kinds of animals in Europe, and prize animals, prize pets, and that sort of thing. And then a man he knew during...
So he radiated animals in Europe, and then he knew a man. I mean, this is just this whole story as if he has this evidence of any of this crap. He read this somewhere in some book of jokes.
The war, became the president of France, and his wife became terminally ill with cancer. And he came to see this man and said, I understand you cured animals with cancer just by radiating them with lunch.
Right, so like we're supposed to believe that the president of France's wife was cured of her cancer by this stupid, longitudinal wave. So instead of the wave spreading this way, I mean, they're not waves anyway, okay? I mean, radio waves aren't waves. They're pulses of rays of energy. Rays of energy. There's no waves anywhere.
Radiation. And he said, yes. I said, would you radiate my wife? And he said, well, I only have a certificate to do animals, not people. And the president said, I'll bring you one tomorrow. People.
Right, so the president of France, right, had to go to the trouble to get a permission to let his wife be irradiated by the veterinarian. Something like that.
And he brought his wife and the certificate with him the next day, and his wife was radiated.
The next day. Yeah, just such an absolute crock of shit story. I mean, just no way this is true.
And within 14 days, her terminal illness of cancer was gone.
What did she eventually die of? Cancer? I'm just curious. I mean, just how many times can you use this treatment? Does it save you every time? Can you live forever? I mean, it's just pathetically stupid.
And he broadcast that information through all the European Union, all the major newspapers in every country carried it, and he also announced.
Well, why can't you leave us a single fucking link then? If it was all over the place, if it was really news, couldn't you just leave us a link to this story instead? And wouldn't everybody already know about it?
That this man was going to receive a multi-million-dollar grant to start treating people.
This is hilarious. Now this part, it really goes over the edge of just You know, and this, like I said, David D. Hilster thinks this guy deserves a lifetime achievement award for doing good science, doing science a favor by telling a lot of wacky fucking stories. I mean, this doesn't muddy the water at all. Crap like this.
And their diseases with his longitudinal light source, I guess you would say. And so he started doing that, and he was doing thousands of people a week and getting
So who believes this, right? He's curing thousands of people a week.
them well from over 92 diseases. And
92 different diseases. The cure for 92 different diseases. And what happened?
then, unfortunately, someone paid the mafia to exterminate this man and everyone who worked for him.
Right.
Everyone.
And they burned all the newspapers, and they burned all the libraries, and they burned all every evidence of that the story ever happened, and they rewrote the history books, and blah 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 blah. The mob did that. I mean, fuck. The guy can sound reasonable now and then, but clearly he's a lunatic.
Who'd been associated with the building of this apparatus, all the engineers, everyone. And then people were afraid to do any more work on it.
Oh, right. Everybody's too afraid to cure 92 diseases. They're afraid the mafia will make them go away. I mean, who believes this horse shit? And all you need is to just make these stupid little radio waves. It's really easy to do. You don't even need no expensive equipment. He did it by accident.
And the French government got the people that did the killing, but they never were able to confirm who paid them. So that
Oh yeah, it really makes sense. Doesn't that make sense? Yes, the French government. I remember that story. You know, when the big arrest when they arrested the mob who killed the cure for cancer.
they guessed it might have been the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry. But that's the background there. And I work with people currently manufacturing and selling on the internet the experimental life energy meter.
So the life energy meter, which again, just a piece of crap, right? It's Franklin tried to do some research on. I mean, it's just a little plastic thing with a couple of diodes in it, pretty much just measuring resistance or something. Humidity. It's not measuring anything.
Which can show you how much life energy you have. And many hospitals use it now in the emergency.
So again, more just crap. Many hospitals, no citation to any hospital on earth that's using this stupid little gimmick to tell whether people are alive or dead.
In order to determine who to give priority to. One day I went to the emergency room. I sprained my wrist doing work in my yard, and I was like,
amazing. I mean, the kind of thing where he sprained his wrist and he went to an emergency room? Come on.
Catholic University on the faculty, and I went to the hospital right next to the university, and they asked me who I was, and I said, Dr. Lucas, and they thought that was a medical doctor. Didn't occur to me, because at the university you always call yourself Dr.
Oh, right. It doesn't occur to you. I'm sure it occurs to you. Yeah, especially when you're in a hospital, I'm sure it occurs to you.
And so they gave me priority over everyone else in the emergency room. And I realized I shouldn't have done that. I should have just gone in as Mr.
Yeah, you're clearly a doctor of what? Storytelling?
Lucas, And but anyway, this meter is now used to determine who may be dying soon, and so they can give you priority and have fewer deaths.
So absolutely no evidence that there's any such device, that it does any such thing, that anyone ever would use it for that purpose. No evidence whatsoever. Just some bullshit that he's selling. A lie. For money.
the emergency room. So that's my background in that area. And if you ever saw the movie Star Wars, they it was a science fiction movie, and they had technology that they thought would be available in the future, and they had what was called the communicator, and you probably got one now. We call it.
Yeah, it's Star Trek. It's not Star Wars. They didn't call it a communicator in Star Wars because they didn't bother pretending communicating was fascinating. They already figured out it would have been, automatic, no trouble.
Cell phone. Well, they didn't have cell phones. They had landlines in those days. And that they also had another device that put out longitudinal radiation. And
no one on Star Trek ever said longitudinal radiation. So again, another lie. And we never know how the tricorder works. Spock takes it apart a few times, uses the parts to make a missile or a plane or some other kind of bullshit, but we never know what the magic is. No such thing ever happened, you fucking liar.
They cured people, got them well from injuries and the diseases and things like that on the movie. So anyway, that even made.
Yeah, that's great science. Star Trek.
The science fiction movies, people thought there might be some benefit for it.
Well, as far as biology and the ether, I think you have to look at the ether, because if you look at...
So this guy was a medical doctor. He's retired now, fortunately for everyone. But you're just saying, how could somebody... Again, this guy is fucking stupid.
Life forms as they exist now, and you go down to the nanoscale, and the organization and the rarefaction of the subcellular organelles that are there. I mean, it has to be something. You can't say a bolt of lightning in a primordial soup or things like that. It just doesn't work. I mean,
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's just chemistry. And so it started off with one little stupid molecule, and then the molecule had to end up associated with other molecules that end up being molecules that helped it copy itself, and then molecules that helped maintain the environment that would have the ingredients necessary. So yes, the membranes and all this other stuff had to be formed, but each organ individually developed, and we can see the evolution from a simple organism like a fish to us, and then we can see that, from to get to the fish was another kind of evolution, and to make the first cell was another kind of evolution, but that's all it was. Dopey. Doctor. I mean, just imagining these people, they went to college and they talk this kind of shit.
it had to be something etheric going on.
How does etheric? It had to be something etheric. So ether is God now. Ether somehow I can build things because I'm ether. I'm very creative because I'm ether. I have lots of moving parts and lots of abilities, and I can read blueprints, and I can figure out how to build the cells. Etheric? See, these are just creationists. What they mean by ether is God. That's what they want to say. They desperately want to say, God. They don't want to have to say ether.
Life began.
Right. And if you take this experimental life energy meter.
Life energy, again, what scientist, anyone who takes the word energy and the word life seriously, who would cram those two words together? Life energy. It's fucking chemistry. And the fucking chemistry is fucking physics. Ugh, this is grotesque.
And you perform that experiment, you'll find there's no life energy. And you...
Says you. So, bold claims and not a shred of evidence for a single one of them.
You can take anything that's living and get it close to the meter, You don't have to touch anything. And the radiation given off, longitudinal radiation, is a measure of the life energy. And you can see, like if I take a leaf off of a plant.
Right. The plant will still be radiating it because the leaf doesn't die. But human beings, when they're dead, all of their cells, 99% of them, are still alive. So how does it register when they're dead?
And, and it's green. And I put it next to the meter, I get a life energy reading. But if I just leave it there, it turns brown, and you see all the life energy goes away. And if you go to the hospital or something like that.
Yes, I just make it up as you go along. Again, not a shred of evidence for a single claim.
Where someone just died, you see the life energy drop as they die. And you can also
prove it, demonstrate it with something that looks like a little tiny piece of something.
See the effect of eating certain foods on your body, because certain foods don't have life energy, and they use up some of your life energy in order to for you to digest them. And that's
another theory that doesn't make any sense. They use up your life energy to digest them. Again, just absolute nonsense. I mean, taking energy out of stuff that has energy in it, that is, complex compounds have lots of energy in them. Anytime you create a compound of a mixture of elements, you have enhanced the energy of the atomic structure of the whole. And any attempt to reduce it to its elemental form will likely produce energy. Just trying to think if there's a reason to believe that's not entirely true. I mean, sharing an electron seems like an absence of energy, so it really is the thermodynamic argument. You're taking energy from the heat of the environment more than you're taking energy from the actual chemistry. It's a way of translating the heat of the environment into something more usable and as a form of energy. That's probably a better way to say it. It's almost like a thermocouple, right? You shove two metals together and you end up getting electricity out. Well, getting the electricity out is completely dependent on the temperature getting in. So the heat of the temperature from the external world hitting the thermocouple is where the energy comes from. Alright, so that's enough of this wacky crap. So maybe we'll call that a day or an afternoon or a video, and we'll save the Puro slop for some other time. It was just slop, about standard model stuff, except he thinks entanglement. He thinks he thinks that's part of the process in some meaningful way. This stupid entanglement crap, which we know is crap. And entanglement experiments, when you really think about what they're doing, they're almost obvious in the sense that in the universe, if we take a static universe and we force something to go left, well, you kind of know to make it go left, you had to make something else go right. So you already know that for anything to happen, you have to have that kind of reflection. Two things hit each other, switch directions, that kind of thing. So you already know any bias you create going left, that is, make more stuff going this way, that you had to make more stuff going that way at the same time to do that, to separate the two. And so in a sense, that's your entanglement, because that's, well, obviously, yes, if I do something to a particle and make it left, well, then I know that somewhere else in the universe, there's the right. So what? It doesn't mean they're entangled. It's just so stupid. Pathetically stupid to believe this stuff on the tiny shreds of evidence. It's just so stupid. Alright, let's just see if there's anything new here. Photoelectric history of Einstein's revolutionary. Well, that might be worth watching. Win the ultimate astronomy experience. No, thank you. Bunch of math crap. Who cares? Solution problem 64. I don't think I'll bother with that. CO2 scattering to O2. Well, maybe. Oh, optimum theory. Oh dear. That is so bad. Such a pile of crap. Let's see, the vacuum of space and vortex anti-vortex pairs. I mean, this whole pair thing is just crap. It's just so depressing. Energy. So that's what's his Jeff Yee. I'll have to see what that is. All right. Let's see. How do we know light is a wave? Well, you don't know it, you retard. So maybe I'll play that dumbass video. Jesus, everything is so fucking goddamn irritating. So that's where we. So this is another Bill Lucas 2 hours of crap. So I have a whole nother fucking 2-hour video to listen to. Shit. It's gonna be so painful. Alright, so that's enough. Ugh. I hate this planet. And such. It's physics. People should be able to agree that yes, there's going to have to be a physical explanation, just like the big universe. Nothing happens by magic. Asteroids have to hit things. Things have to bang into each other. It's physics. Things can't do this frickin' wavy crap unless something's pushing them up and something else has to push them down. And it's physics. There's no free anything. Ugh, I hate this shit.